as he's my favorite character. Did he come off as a wee bit racist when he was talking to Data? No, but
McCoy?
Because he was old as hell. And I remember Data was walking with him. And he's like, I don't see no ears on you. You Klingon boy? I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, you Vulcan boy?
You Vulcan boy? Yeah. I don't see no ears on you. Like,
I think it was him just being a cantankerous old man.
Sure.
Maybe it's a bit dated
now. It came off weird.
Yeah, maybe it's a bit dated now, but who knows? Bit dated.
Good night, everybody.
I'll see myself out.
Yeah. We'll continue the rest of the show.
So, how about one thing Next Generation is known for? Not just the fact that it does have some amazing episodes, and it does.
Yeah.
Like some of the episodes are fantastic, but there's some stinkers.
Yes, like the episode where Dr. Crusher mates
falls
with
in
the
love
ghost.
with the ghost, right?
Yes, that episode weirded me out when I first saw it on the Sci-Fi Channel.
Yeah.
I'm like...
That's. I think
I'm starting to wonder.
One of the worst.
I'm starting to wonder if that was an actor's idea. Was that Gates McFadden's idea?
I
and she was just like, he falls in love with a ghost. And you're like, what?
That's funny you say that because I remember being, I guess, how old was I? I was in my mid to late 20s by that point when the show, I guess mid 20s. I remember watching it, right? Because I watched it when it was on every week, right? And I just remember thinking like around episode or season 6 and 7, I just remember like half of the episodes were like, okay, and because it would say like something along the lines of written by Gates McFadden. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Like written by Michael Dorn. Like, yeah, they're really struggling with stories now. They're letting the actors like have input.
Hey, you guys, like, feel free if you want to write an episode.
Story idea, like, LeVar Burton. You know, it's like okay.
We're like 4 episodes short this season. Feel free to write something.
Right, and it's not saying that they have bad ideas.
And she's like, ooh, I got this killer ghost idea.
And from right. I don't know if she wrote that one. I really don't. But I just remember thinking that back then. And it's not that their ideas aren't valid. And you know what? More power to them to be on a show that they were allowed to basically have that kind of freedom and input. That's amazing. But it doesn't always make for the best TV. Let's be honest.
Yes.
One more person.
But then again, some of those late season episodes are also amazing too. Yeah. But they're just few and far between by that point.
I saw an episode when I was 14. I was questioning if I was watching a Star Trek episode or not.
She was in love with the ghost?
Yeah.
All right.
One more person to talk about real quick before we move on to the next Star Trek is Deanna Troi.
Yeah.
Who I'm not going to say she has no value on the ship, but it does seem like she has very little value on the ship.
She was very, very thoroughly satired in Galaxy Quest by Sigourney Weaver. Yeah. That was basically the point.
I don't
stating the obvious.
Like, she obviously had she had value, but it was like whenever they talked to someone, it was like, Deanna, what do you think? And she's like, he looked mad.
Yeah,
he seemed angry.
I think the writers, probably partially being pressed for time, but partially also because, they're not themselves psychic, probably struggled with how to make that unique. Yeah. And instead it came off as very perfunctory and obvious.
Yeah.
Like it was very, you're right. Like he seemed mad. Well, no kidding there, Cupcake guy. Like, what are you doing?
If you do not leave our space, we will blow you up.
We will open fire.
Yeah, and then they go up.
Deanna, what do you think?
I think they're mad because we're in their space. Like, noted, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, yeah.
Your spot on the bridge is well earned.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I agree. And then, of course, DS9 started before Next Generation ended.
It's the best Star Trek ever.
But before that, we're going to get into the Next Generation movies.
Wait, Deep Space Nine started
before Next Generation ended. It actually started, I want to say, when season 6?
Wow.
So or maybe 7 of Next Generation?
At a certain point, there was 2 Star Trek shows going on simultaneously at the same time.
Oh, there was. And then actually Voyager was going on when Deep Space Nine was going on as well.
Yeah.
I never seen any episodes.
Which I liked Voyager. Yeah. Actually,
but
I don't know people.
But first, let's get into the movies. Yeah. The first movie, of course, was Generations, which is very meh.
Not a lot of Star Trek Next Gen movie winners, are there?
There are not.
Yeah.
Generations, let's just pass that one because it was very meh. I mean, it had a good cast. It was cool seeing a few things, but it was just kind of like felt like a really crowbarred way to have them meet. Like,
and the way to kill off Kirk.
So that was dumb. So let's jump right into the only real good Star Trek Next Generation movie, which has a lot of really bad plot holes, but it's still entertaining as heck, which was First Contact, which had a super creepy and somehow still really sexy Borg Queen, played by Alex Krieg.
Somehow.
It had some really interesting data moments.
Where you're like,
yes.
Assimilate me.
Yeah. It had some good. It had some good action. Stuff like that. How did you guys feel about
I liked it,
First Contact? Yeah, you liked
Yeah,
it?
I liked it.
especially
I thought it was
all
good.
of.
Probably the only.
It's the only good
It's
one.
the only good one. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, they didn't have a lot of movies.
No.
I like the conflicts Picard had to face in that movie.
Yeah, his story arc and the fact that it harkened back to, which is why I think it's Next Generation's Wrath of Khan, not the later movie, which we'll get into, because it did harken back to the old show and something he went through and had clearly not dealt with correctly, which is weird considering it's the 23rd century.
Yeah.
And that now he had to deal with because it was in his face saying, we're going to kill you and take your whatever. And then, of course, after that, we have the incredibly dull, should have been a Star Trek Next Generation TV movie, Insurrection, which was pretty dang forgettable, I think.
Yeah.
Do you guys even remember it?
No. not
Exactly.
really. That one or Nemesis.
Exactly my point. Well, there are a
I do
few
remember-
key things about Nemesis,
Yeah,
which we'll get into.
Nemesis-
Nemesis is bad, but there's some key things
And
about
I think I've played the I think I remember the video game more than.
it. Oh, yeah, there you go.
There was an arcade shoot 'em up,
Oh, okay.
and I would accidentally shoot the co-pilot.
So we're going to go right past
Wow,
Nemesis since
dude.
clearly nobody knows enough to remember
Yeah.
it. It had a good cast. It's just very dull. So after Insurrection was, of course, Nemesis, which starred a very young Tom Hardy as Picard's clone.
Yeah,
and
that's
he
that's the
and
thing
honestly,
I remember most about
the
Nemesis.
one thing I remember about that movie was thinking like this kid's going to be a star, man. This guy has a great screen presence.
You called it, huh?
right? Yeah. Well, I just remember thinking like he's got great screen presence. Like,
Yeah.
Because I think I remember like looking it up, and he was only like 22 at the time.
Holy
Wow.
crap!
And if you read about Tom, what's his name?
Tom Hardy.
Tom Hardy. Yeah. For some reason, I got stuck on Holland, which is somebody totally different.
That's
Oh.
Spider-Man, dude.
Right, and it's also the director of Fright Night.
I thought you were going to say
Not the
Brady.
same Tom Holland. Tom Hardy. Apparently, like he was huge into drugs and stuff at the time, and he was throwing his body everywhere. Yeah, there's a whole thing. Yeah. Anyway, but apparently when he got this job, he's like, I can't screw this up. He said he was straight and sober every day of that shoot. Like he didn't screw around with nothing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good for him.
And it shows, man. He's got good screen presence on it. But then he disappeared for a few years because the movie was bad.
Yeah.
And I remember like the writers,
And no one ever heard from him again.
right. I remember the writer sort of saying like, this is for the fans because he called it. This is going to be the Next Generation's Wrath of Khan. But the main problem with the movie is they tried to force all this emotion for something that didn't exist. Like there was nothing happened before it. Like so there was nothing to tie it to.
That reminds me, just real quick. That just reminds me of J.J. Abrams when he was on the Daily Show.
Yeah.
He was talking about how he wasn't a Star Trek fan making a Star Trek movie, and Jon Stewart's like, "What?"
He just starts doing this.
Yeah, he's just like, "What? What are you talking? And we're gonna pretend like you didn't say any of these things."
He goes, I'm gonna pretend you spent the last few minutes because I wasn't listening.
Yeah,
I'm gonna pretend you spent the last few minutes apologizing.
Yeah.
We'll get into that because that's
of course
coming up.
Jon Stewart was wrong because he didn't screw those movies up at all.
Right. We'll get into that. So after that, of course, we have DS9, and Voyager, and Enterprise, which we're going to kind of talk about all three. A lot of people really love DS9, by the way.
I'm quite surprised to hear that. I think everyone I've talked to usually universally agrees that DS9's not great.
Really?
Yeah,
I know a lot of people that think that's like the best one.
I've never heard it
Williams
called bad.
Sci-Fi Center William. He loves DS9.
Everyone I've talked to has said that
Really?
it's just okay at best.
I know my brother also he thinks that's the best Star Trek because it introduced conflict, which I have my issues with DS9. However, I will say that one of my top 5 Star Trek episodes did take place on it was a DS9 episode, which for the most part I don't care for DS9, but one of the early episodes, I want to say it was like the 3rd or 4th episode. I don't remember what the name of it is, but that is one of my favorite. And that's when the lizard guy, he looks kind of like a lizard, and he's like, I am Tosk. That's what he says. And he's basically being pursued by these other lizard guys that are trying to kill him. And they're trying to help him. And he's like, what are you doing? You're disgracing me. This is our culture. This is what we are. This is what we live for. And they figure out like, it's a different culture, and it's just a great story. I love that one.
Yeah.
Well,
What'd you guys think of DS9?
I only saw the 4 episodes. I didn't really get too invested in it because I was getting into other things at the same time, like anime. But I do love the premise of Deep Space Nine, though. Basically, it's a smaller ship.
Intergalactic rest stop. Intergalactic gas station.
It's in a small ship, and they're sent to like a point in time where they can't really go back.
Yeah, and at first they had those warp-capable shuttles, like the what are they called, like the runabouts, and then of course they introduced the Defiant.
And basically, everyone has to get along with each other.
Yeah,
that's what I liked. But from what I heard, they don't really do anything much with that concept.
They do. I think they do. It does have some good. I think DS9 has some really good moments.
I think,
for what it's worth.
Unfortunately,
I do like the Vulcan of that crew because he's like the polar
not
opposite.
Tuvok. That's not Tuvok.
No, that's Deep Space Nine.
I think
DS9.
Yeah, in Deep
I don't
Space
think
Nine.
they have a Vulcan.
Or not Deep Space Nine, Voyager. That
Voyager has
Voyager.
a Vulcan.
Yeah.
No, wait. No,
DS9, I don't think has a Vulcan, do they?
He's the one who's like opposite of Spock. He's like more aggressive. I think that's Tuvok.
No, Tuvok's Voyager.
Voyager?
Yeah. I'm trying to remember who. Well, let's see what comes up here. Tuvok's Voyager.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think I missed. How old was I when that movie? I was like 10 or 11
when that show came out.
When I was 10 or 11 when Next Gen was out. So like I wasn't watching it religiously. Like when you're a kid, you're not. At least I wasn't watching something religiously. I was there was always something going on. So like I didn't. There was a lot of episodes of TNG that I didn't watch until I rewatched the whole series again. So, and I think I missed a lot of Deep Space. I missed a lot of Deep Space Nine.
Like I said, I think Deep Space Nine coming off the end of Next Generation, which Next Generation, although it clearly got away from Roddenberry's initial vision, I think it still tried to sort of stick to that for the most part, where DS9 was the first major departure. That's where you had like different concepts and writers completely, I think. And it was coming off the back of Next Generation. I think that's why it's so popular. I mean, I know a lot of people that love it. They think it's the best one. I don't. I think it has some great moments, but and great characters. I just don't. As a whole, I didn't care for it as much. And of course, when DS9 was still on, we get Voyager. I don't know. Voyager was their way to return to roots, which I think was an initially great concept.
Honestly, I liked Voyager as a whole. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I think they had.
You never saw Voyager?
No.
Okay.
I think they had a great idea with like. It was almost like starting from scratch.
Yeah.
Just going into like the unexplored. We're lost in the unexplored parts of space, so we're gonna see stuff that is not familiar to anybody. It's like almost like allowing them to sort of write new ideas.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think, at least from my point of view, I think that's where it failed, because it almost seemed like, and maybe it was about ratings, I don't know, but it almost seemed like they were afraid to really capitalize on that concept. They kept falling into the same old Next Generation Deep Space Nine story tropes.
Right.
And it was just like, even though there are some great episodes, I didn't like that they mixed in the Borg so thoroughly, and that was a bit much for me. And that's when it tied into the original motion picture, which is just huge eye roll for me. Just, ugh. But, one of my favorite episodes, which is with the Equinox, where they encounter another ship that got sent there just like they did, but that ship's smaller and didn't have the same resources, so it's all about what that crew had to do to survive, which they had to use some kind of transphasic creatures to run their ship, which basically the creatures were being tortured. That's how they were powering the ship. And of course, when Janeway found out, she's like, that ain't cool. You know what I mean?
I could also do with a lot less complaining from the Maquis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There
were times where like the Maquis don't like this, and I'd be like, well, screw the Maquis.
We're all in
you're
this
on
together,
my
man.
ship.
Yeah. I think, for me, I think Voyager is a lot like, because I watched more of Voyager than Deep Space Nine, especially early on.
Wow.
But it was too hit and miss. It's just Janeway doing things her way, which were just absurd. And for the sake of the show, of course, she was successful, and that's.
I like that she liked coffee.
Yeah.
I love coffee.
I love coffee too. Yeah. I like the idea.
Honestly, I don't know. I know there's a lot of people who make fun of her who like. Yeah. I liked her. I thought she was good.
Yeah. I mean,
no one's
Mike
Picard,
Nelson dressed up as Janeway on MST3K, and that was like right after the first season, so it was still pretty fresh.
Oh, wow.
I don't even think the second season premiered. It was like only a few months after he's dressed up as Janeway on the Satellite of Love. But Yeah, and then I like that the crew, they tried to do relationships within the crew, but I just got to say this. The actor that played Tom Paris and the actor that played Bella Torres, no chemistry, like none. They never felt like a couple at all.
I wasn't a fan of
Right.
Paris.
All right.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of Paris.
Yeah.
It did feel like they just kind of put. Maybe they were like, you know what fans really like if we put them together. People are.
Yeah.
What is it called? I forgot. It's
Fan service?
no. I don't know what it's called.
And
Shipping.
Oh,
yeah.
You know, fan shipping. Maybe that's why they were like, yeah, let's just put them together. Why
Yes,
not?
there's tons of
And
shipping
then-
wars out there.
And then, of course,
He obviously
7 of 9 showed up, which was a genius move in a way because
Yeah.
you basically get this gorgeous woman with a great body in a skin-tight suit, but then you actually give her some really good storylines. So it's like, that's really tricky, you sons of bees.
Oh, yeah. She's like
very
she's
tricky.
like Deanna Troy if she served more of a purpose.
Right. You play the lowest common denominator, but then bam, you trick us with some solid writing.
You
right?
got me. You
right?
got me,
yeah.
Voyager.
Right, yeah. So after Voyager, of course, which,
Can I be honest? I stopped watching after that.
yeah.
I stopped watching.
You never
after
watched
Voyager.
Enterprise?
No.
Did
No.
you watch any of the
Nope.
Enterprises?
At that point,
Oh.
I stopped getting into Star Trek. And
All right. Well, I'll make it brief. The show wasn't very good.
Gas.
It tried to do a lot of like the temporal wars. So there's a whole lot of time travel shenanigans and silliness. And
Ew.
when did Enterprise come
Um,
out?
What, early?
99, 2000 maybe.
No,
Something
wasn't it like
that?
mid 2000s or something?
No, I
Or
don't
early
think-
2000s?
Maybe it was early.
I remember
2000s.
I remember seeing the opening once.
The
in
opening was a
sci-fi.
huge departure from the original Star Wars sort of format,
Yeah,
Star Trek?
or Star Trek. Yeah, Star Trek format.
like
You make one joke at the beginning of the
Right.
show.
you get it stuck in our heads. I mean, again, it has some. Oh, that's not what I wanted.
Like I saw
It has some good episodes, but they're pretty few and far between. I do say that T'Pol, the gal that played the Vulcan, was just incredibly attractive. Like, wow.
I would
Like,
agree with
wow.
you if I
might have
knew what she
seen
looked
one
like.
episode in
Right.
Sci-Fi Channel vaguely, like a long time
Yeah.
ago, and I probably thought that it looked too much like Firefly, so I just skipped it.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
The strongest character on Enterprise, to me, honestly, the strongest character was the Dr. Phlox. He was great. The rest, I don't know, just never could seem to get into that one.
That's
too
supposed to take
much.
place before.
It's supposed to be a prequel.
original series,
yeah,
right?
It was supposed to be a prequel, which I always hate. Because then they invariably start doing things that don't make sense, that didn't carry through, and and then
Wait a minute, is this the one where
they showed the Gorn, which were entirely CGI, and it was terrible.
is this the show
Yeah,
where
it was terrible.
you get to see?
I mean,
the
you already had a
first-
guy in a suit. Can't you just have a guy in a suit again?
Yeah, they were like CGI. They were bad CGI too.
Is this the show where you get to see the humans' first contact with the Vulcans, or the first
No,
contact with the Romulans?
it was as the Federation was being formed, and basically it was just the Vulcans, the Andorians, which weren't getting along anyway.
They were the blue
and-
people with the white hair, right?
and the little
The
antenna.
little
yeah.
antenna.
And then
They look like snorks.
and then the humans. Yeah, I don't know if there was any
But-
other member races.
But in the
yet.
beginning, in the beginning, Earth is all jacked up.
No. It's after like first contact. It's when Earth started to get their stuff together.
Oh,
And with the help of the Vulcans, they made their first warp-capable ship, which was the Enterprise.
yeah, I don't even
Let that
remember
be a
the first
lesson. We can
episode.
get there, guys.
I
We can
saw.
get there. We just got to get our stuff together.
You're right. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't care for it. So Enterprise died, and then there was a lull, and nothing happened for a while.
And then the greatest thing that you ever could have imagined
And then
hit theaters.
And then some jackanape Ouijibo named J.J. Abrams, who did some interesting things on TV which weren't very good.
Like,
Got a hold
Fringe. I liked Fringe.
of I think this was maybe he did do Fringe
I
before
mean,
that. I don't know.
I sort of like the first
But,
Cloverfield movie.
But yeah, he did Cloverfield by that time. But he made Star Trek 2009's reboot. How do you guys feel about the movie? Because I will only be negative. I hated that. No, that's not true. I didn't hate the first one.
Can I
But
tell you-
how do you guys feel?
Can I
about
tell
the
you a
movie?
story?
I hated the second
Can
one.
I
That's
tell
when
you a
started to
story?
hate
I
it.
don't think because we hadn't met yet.
Okay. No.
I believe not.
Not
So-
until like 2012, I think.
Yeah, a little bit after that. So I had gone with a friend to see this movie,
Right.
thinking like, "Ooh, this is going to be great. Star Trek's back."
Right.
And I remember we sat in front of some Trekkies, Like these were like three guys. They were wearing like the old school shirts, right? The old school like uniforms,
okay,
right?
yeah.
So I'm like, okay, this is gonna be this is gonna be great, or this is gonna be real bad. If I can't decide by the end of this movie, they're gonna let me know. So we watched the whole movie, and the credits are rolling, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, this isn't good. This wasn't good at all. Am I wrong? Am I wrong? And then I hear the three Trekkies behind me, and they're like, dude, that was great. Oh, it was so good. And I'm like, no, they can't be right. They cannot be right. The person that I went to the movie with was like, no, that movie sucked. And I'm like, oh, good. I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
I think it was Daryl.
Yeah.
My friend Daryl, yeah.
Did you see it?
Who you know.
Yeah, I know. Daryl.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. I didn't see it in theaters because I wasn't really that invested in Star Trek yet, but I remember the Mad parody more, and basically the Mad parody in Cartoon Network because back then I was hooked on Cartoon Network.
Weren't we all?
Basically,
at one point or another.
Basically, in the Mad parody, they're like, "Oh, really?" And by the end of that parody, it was like, "We already copied so much from Star Wars. Let's just like copy the ending of Star Wars altogether."
Right.
Although I do like the parts with Leonard Nimoy as Old Spock.
Yeah,
despite
I think that's because you like Leonard Nimoy,
because he's
right?
good.
That's
Yeah,
because,
he's
it's
good.
because people like Leonard Nimoy.
Despite me hating the whole destruction of the Vulcan planet, that part pissed me off.
I remember I didn't like it, but I remember I didn't out and out hate it. And the reason why is because I thought, okay, they're trying to do something different, and it's an action movie. It's not science fiction. And this is before I really became acquainted with JJ's work more intimately. I didn't know he had even
I like
done.
how you have so much disrespect for
didn't even
J.J.
know.
Abrams that you don't call him by his full name. You're like, let me tell you something about J.J.
Jar Jar Abrams.
Jar Jar Abrams. I like that.
Let me tell you about John Jonah Abrams.
Right, yeah. I remember thinking that, okay, so, Wrath of Khan was an action movie that sort of reinvigorated the franchise, so maybe that's what they're doing here.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, like, it's popular because clearly people love it. But I didn't like it. So maybe, I got to give the next movie a chance just for that, just because that. But then I found out that it didn't make a lot of money. Like, it really didn't.
The first one?
Yeah, it didn't. And there was a lot of people online that were really defending this movie. But knowing how JJ markets movies, I'm pretty sure a lot of those people were probably paid to be trolls for Star Trek.
I mean,
here's my question.
Positive reviews, right? Positive
Right.
reviews.
Yeah.
Really just trying to snub anybody who says anything negative.
Here's my question to you, right?
All right.
Would you say this movie is what the Hobbit movie is to me, in that it's not that movie's not Star Trek. The Hobbit
It's not the Hobbit.
is not the Hobbit.
Right, yeah.
But if it were anything else besides what it was supposed to be, what would you have thought of it?
Probably just
Like, because
there was too many things that didn't make sense.
if you showed me the Hobbit,
Right.
and it wasn't supposed to be the Hobbit, it was supposed to be some fantasy movie somebody made up,
Right.
I'd be like, okay, yeah, that's enjoyable. I think the fact that it was
the Hobbit.
the Hobbit is why I didn't like it, because it was. You know what I mean? Like, would you say that's the same case with the Star Trek movie?
No, because there was
if this was a space adventure movie,
there was just so many things where you're just like, huh?
yeah, especially with the
Like,
villains.
and I was a Simon Pegg fan. I think he was so miscast as Scotty, like so miscast.
Yeah.
He just didn't feel right, didn't look right, and then he had his stupid little sidekick. That was annoying.
I hated the villains.
Chris Pine, I thought was terrible. It was years later in another movie when I realized he could actually play Captain Kirk, and that was, of course, his character Steve Trevor in Wonder Woman. I'm like, oh, hey, it's Captain Kirk.
There's
at
Kirk.
At least now I know he can play him.
Yeah.
Because he's clearly
Or that
not
he was
playing
capable
him.
of playing him.
He's clearly not playing him in Star Trek.
Right.
I thought.
what's his name is Spock.
I didn't dislike him as Spock, but I don't think and I don't know if it's JJ or him. His performance was way too stiff. He lacked the subtlety that Leonard Nimoy, and I don't blame him necessarily. Maybe that's what JJ wanted, because there's a lot that goes on that doesn't make it into the final film. Yeah. It just never felt like
subtle is one of the last things you describe that movie.
And he just felt like this. A pastiche is too kind. He just felt like a really bad imitation of where Carl Urban felt like a pastiche of McCoy.
Yeah.
A lot of people thought he was great. I didn't. it felt like an imitation.
I think his
I
imitation
don't
is
think
great. I think
that was
I
my
think
problem.
he sounded great,
Right.
but he wasn't McCoy.
It didn't feel like he was McCoy. It felt like he was doing an imitation, a good imitation of McCoy, where why is his name escaping me? The guy that played Spock. I like the actor. I think he's great in other stuff. I loved him in American Horror Story.
Yeah.
But like his Spock was just
can't
so
think of his name.
So wooden. It was just so blah.
Yeah. So
and
like,
it was just like that was just a bad imitation of Spock
like,
to me.
even if you take out the Star Trek name in it and have it be the sci-fi movie, the villains is what turned me off about the whole movie. Is like, oh yeah, we went back in time to screw you over, and like we're just gonna
we're
wait.
just gonna hang out for 40 years or whatever.
I just looked up Zachary Quinto.
Zachary Quinto.
Zachary Quinto.
So and then of course they followed up with a sequel several years later, actually, called Into Darkness.
Biggest waste of Peter Weller ever.
Wow. So, how do you guys feel about Into Darkness before I get started? Because this is the film that made me hate Star Trek or the reboots.
So much worse than the first one.
Okay,
yeah.
So much worse.
Bad story aside, waste of Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah, that's
waste
true.
of Peter Weller.
Yeah, that's true. All true.
Yeah.
So here's what that movie felt like to me.
Mm-hmm. Nails on a chalkboard.
Yeah, yes, it did. It seemed like they were trying to do these emotionally driven scenes that fans would go, "Oh, that's so cool," but yet within the story itself, there was no emotional connection within those characters to those scenes.
Right.
Right.
They did the whole reverse of the Khan thing, and then of course Khan was superhuman. He wasn't just augmented. He wasn't just faster. He was literally like Superman. Which was weird, and so was Spock. So I mean,
that was one of the glaring potholes. Is like he was frozen for how long?
Yeah, he was
and all of a sudden he knows how to make a ship that's better than the ship that they have.
Here's my thing about that. That's like saying, hey, you know what? We found Galileo frozen. We can reanimate him. Let's reanimate him and have him build a tank and a helicopter. and you reanimate him, and he go, what? Your technology is better than anything I could do. You know what I mean?
I think
it doesn't make any sense.
He would spend most of the time crapping himself at what the world has become.
Right, yeah.
And the dynamic that I tried adding between Kirk,
so
Spock,
dumb.
and Aurora,
so dumb. Yeah.
Like that. Like, why would you? That love triangle is like, it's
I
like the definition
didn't
of
get that.
unnecessary.
Yeah, I didn't get that either. Yeah, it's just like, what is going on? Like, let's recreate this guy so we can have him build a better starship.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of like, hey, you know what people really liked? Star Trek
cool?
2.
So
let's do Star Trek 2.
Except it's not
let's do
at all.
let's do Wrath of Khan.
And then, of course, you have two elements. I think this is... Now I'm getting my movies confused. I think both elements are from this movie. Then you had Khan blood, which can basically heal anybody from death.
Yes.
Which is just like...
Which gets
what?
rid of the whole impact of dying.
Right. Yeah, I mean, at least the old movies waited a whole movie.
Are we? Yeah, we're just gonna put him back to sleep. We're not gonna bottle that stuff.
Right. And then you beam somebody into the Klingon Empire or something, or was that the first movie? I don't even remember. But you basically can beam somebody several solar systems away, several light years away.
Yeah.
It's like, then why would you ever need a starship again? Like what?
Yeah.
Let's just beam people where we need them. You know what I mean?
And that's why there wasn't a third movie, because they don't need a ship anymore.
There was a third movie.
No, shut your mouth.
It's even. You know what? I only made it about 3.5 minutes in. I kid you not.
There was a third movie.
Frank made it 8 minutes in. I think.
Why is it not?
It's bad.
Why is it not? It's
you
not
never
clicking. No, a third Kelvin timeline Star Trek movie.
There is a third.
But it wasn't directed
Kelvin.
by J.J. Abrams.
Which one was it?
No, that one wasn't. It was Star Trek Beyond.
Yeah. I didn't even bother that movie, but all I know is
oh, man, that's bad.
The first 3 minutes it just turned into a big comedy bit, and I turned it off. I'm like, done. I am done.
I just remembered it.
Right.
That is bad. Right. When the last movie was so bad that I can't remember that there was a third movie.
I don't have any slides.
I
thought I had slides of it. I guess I did.
That's terrible.
I guess I erased it from my...
Yeah, I was pretty much done after that. I didn't even remember there was a third one until just now. Yeah. Oh, my God.
All I know about Into Darkness is it's a dumb action
Well, that's not
movie.
Into Darkness. Now we're talking about From Beyond.
Yeah.
From Beyond. It's a dumb action movie.
Beyond,
right?
yeah, it's just a dumb action movie.
And I think what gets me is, like, my understanding, I don't know because I haven't seen him, but my understanding is that the bad guy is an alien who's basically mad at Earth because of Earth's aggressive foreign policy, basically, the Middle East. Except it turns out he was actually human, that he was mutated into that form. Like, wait, what? Like, I don't get what's going on. Anyway, enough about that. So,
wow.
So then,
I'm still flabbergasted that I forgot that there was a third movie.
So here we are
That's
now.
how bad it is.
Several iterations, several producers, several showrunners away from Roddenberry's, what he calls his purest vision, which was Next Generation. And now they want to relaunch it for TV. Now, by this point, and during the Star Trek movies from 2009 on, apparently, Viacom, if my details are wrong, please let me know in the comments, but I want to say Viacom owned CBS, and there was some sort of split, and then basically both CBS and Paramount both own the rights to produce Star Trek, but only one of them had the rights to the certain aspects of how things looked, which is why they had to redesign the uniforms.
They had to redo a ship.
Yeah, they had to redo the ship a certain way.
Which was what, like a Ralph McQuarrie?
Well, this is Discovery. Even the movies had to do this, apparently.
Oh, wow.
That's why their uniforms, if you notice, the uniforms are full of a pattern of little Star Trek symbols. It was so they could differentiate.
No.
Yeah.
Are they?
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah. Anyway, because this show's going long, so let's find a way to cut it short.
I didn't watch it, so that should be easy.
So, Discovery starts. I watched the first couple episodes. I did not like it. It was so far removed from what I thought Star Trek was. Did you see any of it?
I don't have CBS streaming service.
You never saw any of them?
Although I did see the short with the Tribbles.
Right. Yeah, we'll get into that.
I was
Because I
planning
remember-
on seeing it at some point, but I remember we talked about it, and you were telling me about it, and you were showing me clips, and I'm like, no, this isn't good.
bad.
This isn't good.
Because I saw it because in the same way,
Where Star Trek is supposed to be progressive, there is one scene in Discovery that is just not progressive at all. It seemed more pandering.
Yeah.
Where here we are in the future, and I don't know. I won't get into it, but it was just bad. It seemed very pandering.
I saw it because I think it was free in CBS's YouTube channel. The whole short.
Oh, okay. And then they had in Discovery, Discovery, they had, there's the one guy, which I love Doug Jones, right?
Yeah.
I love the actor, but he's just like, I can sense the approach of death. Really? I mean, come on now. We're just going into pure fantasy now. We clearly don't even care about any science fiction pretense. We're just flat out fantasy, right?
Legolas, what do your elven eyes see?
That's right. Oh, my God. And then, of course, what happened? Oh, something's pulling. The Star Trek shorts. Oh, that's what happened. The Star Trek shorts, which famously the Tribble one, which... And yeah, that one's bad.
Is that the one with John Glaser, I think is his name? The guy who does the voice of Archer? I remember he's in a couple shorts, right?
Yeah, John Benjamin.
John Benjamin. I'm sorry.
That alone did not make me
John
want to watch any of the CBS stuff.
Yeah.
Like that short alone. Like if any of the episodes are like that, then I'm just nah.
Yeah, well, anyway, so what did you think about it?
Complete polar opposite of the intent of what Star Trek's supposed to be, especially Next Generation, where there's an episode with a similar situation, but instead of outright letting the person die,
right,
they try communicating and working with them.
This is the guy who was addicted to going to the holodeck, right?
Primarily, no. Yeah, Barclay.
Yeah.
Barclay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Basically, John Benjamin's character was trying to do research on tribbles, and he was really obsessed, and he was kind of a dope. But
it was written as
but the captain, who's played by the gal that plays Battle Angel Alita, she plays a captain. She does nothing to try to connect with
the main
him.
character.
Yeah, she does nothing to try to connect with his character. She does nothing to try to, bring him into the fold or deal with him on a level. She basically insults him, tells him his ideas are stupid. Other members of the crew are discouraging, So, of course, that's just going to make him more focused on what he's trying to do. And then basically when he dies, she faces an inquest. And her answer to Starfleet, which apparently satisfies them, is he was basically an idiot. Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay, he got himself killed. Yeah, good. And of course, compared to Next Generation with the one scene with Barclay, where Picard is basically chastising Geordi, saying,
You got to find a way to work with this guy.
You're his commanding officer. Find a way to work with him. Find a way to connect with something you have in common and build the relationship from there.
Yeah.
You don't abandon his ideas. That's not what being in command is.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You know, and it's just like, it is night and day. And it's just like, what is going on?
like,
It's so...
Those two things are kind of why I quit watching the new Star Trek.
Yeah.
Now, something has happened since then, which I'll get into real quick before we finish up.
How strange is it that, like, we go from what was supposed to be this idea of a future where people are far more understanding of other people.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Or
And
at
if
least
you're on the
or
ship,
at least understanding of human behavior.
right? Yeah.
Right.
Like if you're on the ship, you obviously serve some kind of a purpose, and
Right.
you know people should be willing to work with you or find a way to get you
Right.
involved more. And now we're sort of in this weird place where it's like, oh no, if this is how you're going to be. Screw
I'm
you.
not going to deal
Screw
with
you.
I'm not going to deal with you.
Yeah, like that is a terrible attitude to have. I'm not gonna.
Right.
I don't want to get like.
Now,
I don't. It just
and then
seems
there's
so stupid.
Then there's Star Trek Lower Decks, which there was a picture on here, which
Is
it
the
just there it
cartoon,
is
yeah,
right
the
there. It
animated.
just I don't like its look. It looks like it's trying to be silly.
It-
If people like it, that's cool.
It
I
looks
don't-
like it's trying to copy Rick and Morty.
right.
Basically.
I don't care. But one thing did happen where apparently, and I don't know the details of it. Correct me whatever I got wrong. But apparently Viacom or CBS or Paramount all came together again, and now Star Trek is under one tent pole. Apparently that caused a retooling of Discovery. I have not watched the newer ones. I have heard it is better. I don't know what that means. I'm almost afraid to check it out, but it's worth checking out. If CBS
I
is
don't
now
know.
under the same tent flag now, it's worth.
He was
checking
an
out.
idiot, sir. That doesn't.
Well,
I mean, you were in the service. What would
Yeah.
people say if they were like, "What happened to this person?" Well, he was a moron. Like, well, I guess that's good enough.
Yeah.
Good enough. Go back to
Let
your
me
job.
tell you, there's a lot of phases before you get rid of a soldier. I
Right.
mean,
Granted, these are
A lot of
scientists,
phases.
but they're scientists in a military
in a
capacity.
military-esque
Yeah.
situation. Yeah. You got to it's exactly the same. Actually, you have to find a way to work those people.
Yeah.
You have to find common ground, and you have to find commonality. And the truth is, most of the time, those people are willing to too, because they don't want. You're together so much that you want everybody kind of understands. You have to find a way.
Yeah.
And there's occasionally times when it doesn't work out, but it's few and far between, and there's a lot that goes on before it comes to that. You know what I mean? Like,
This show is supposed to show you the best of
better
what humanity could be.
right.
And when it's like, well, no, he's a moron, and
Yeah,
he
he
died
was-
because
he
he's
was
a
an
moron.
idiot.
Like that's a very present day way to think, and that's
Yeah.
not great
And
for
not
a
progressive.
for a future show.
But
for
any-
a show about the future.
But anyway, apparently
Ironic.
Voyager has been retooled, is my understanding. So give it a shot.
Yeah.
So let's wrap this up because we have been going on a long time.
All right.
I think that let's ask one last question
Sure.
for each of us,
Mhm.
and I can finish it up or I can start, whatever you guys want. Why was Star Trek important, or why do you think it's important, or why do you think it's important to you, or why was it important to you?
Well, I think it was what I was just talking about, right? Like it's
Right.
supposed to be a vision of us as a species being better,
A better
right?
humanity,
Of course,
right.
it's always like stuff like it's like the X-Men. It's always an allegory for
Right.
accepting people
Right.
of different customs and different ways of life. I
Right.
think that's what I love about the old shows the most is like
Right.
there's still a lot of that human element of like, yeah, you know what? You still do get mad and you still do get upset and you still do want to just punch something,
But you got to find a better way.
but you got to find a better way, and they usually always do.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about Star Trek.
How about you?
Same thing. Same as them. It's just like it's supposed to represent a better future. It's supposed to represent a third option, not either or. Like
Right.
what stuff
Punch or
is.
walk away. No,
Yeah.
find a better solution. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if not, like choose what's the most satisfying in terms like how effective it is to the people you're trying to serve or help.
Right. For me, science fiction at the time when I watched it, which was the early and mid 70s when it was on reruns, when that wasn't, science fiction wasn't that accessible in popular culture. There wasn't even Twilight Zone reruns that often.
Oh damn!
Um,
But I like Twilight Zone.
there
more
was
than
no
Star Trek.
cable at the time. When I was a kid, there was 4 channels. and one of them was PBS, which was Sesame Street and
other one-
Electric Company.
When you were a kid, the other one was the Dumont
Well,
Network.
5 channels, which Fox 5 now was KVVU. It was like a local channel, so there was that. But that was where you sometimes saw like Godzilla movies and stuff like that, right? So for me, that was science fiction before I could see it anywhere else.
Spider-Man and the Electric Company.
Yeah, right.
I want that suit.
Of course, it asked bigger questions that didn't always have a good answer or an answer at all. And, as you guys said, it always showed a better version of humanity, which is why it struck a chord with me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So you want to hear a cool anecdote about the original season?
Please.
Everybody knows that Command wore gold and Science wore blue. I meant to get the picture. I don't have it. And then Operations, which is security and engineering and a few other things, wore red, right?
Yeah.
However, did you know that Command, the captain himself, was not wearing gold, not even in the old show? His tunic is actually a slight green color.
Really?
In the old show.
Kirk, I remember there were episodes where Kirk was wearing like what looked like a velour green.
Yeah, there's
shirt?
that wraparound shirt, and there's
Yeah.
also, if you notice, there's also the dress shirt, which is more green.
Mm-hmm.
His shirt is actually green, but the fabric they used and the way the lights caught it, it looked just like the other gold shirts. There's a picture. I should find it. I'll have to show it maybe on a later show, or maybe I'll just put it in the comments when I find it. There's actually a picture where the guy shows, he recreates the studio. He has the original, the original shirt or the original fabric they used, and he shows he recreates the studio lights, and it looks just like the gold shirt, and then he shows it under more natural lights using modern cameras, and it's green. It is clearly green.
So it's like that situation
But
with
the
that
studio
photo
lights-
of the blue dress, or is it blue or gold?
Right.
It's like that.
It just never showed up with the original studio lights. It's really
So
it never showed up on camera.
The gold shirt.
No, he didn't have a gold shirt.
But
It's actually green.
Oh, I see.
The reason why he gets those green shirts later on was because they were like, oh, we need to make it more green. You know what I mean? Because it didn't show up under the lights. So that's why
Green is such a weird color for a command.
Right. Well, he was the
odd,
captain.
right?
That was his special sort of. He was the only one that had that. But anyway, that's my anecdote. So really quick before we get out of here, recommendations for the week.
All right.
Go for it. Yeah.
All right. So recently, it was just announced that
Let me go back to this. Go ahead.
somewhere in June, Final Fantasy VII Remake, it's going to be on PS5 with exclusive DLC.
Nice. Now if we could only get PS5s.
Yes.
Nice.
Damn the shortage.
And
of PS5.
7 is free on PlayStation Plus right now.
Yeah.
For PS4.
It's so good.
What you got? What you got?
So I know I brought up the whole Leonard Nimoy Bilbo Baggins song.
Right.
The only reason I looked that up is because I rewatched the Rankin and Bass Hobbit. Yeah. I recently got it. I got the good one.
Good.
And we recently watched it again. So
Nice. It's good.
It's old.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of you have probably seen it, but if you haven't seen it, go see that one
It's a
and
much
not
better
the
version
Peter
of The
Jackson
Hobbit,
of
yeah.
The Hobbit. Yeah.
It hits all the right beats, right?
Yeah, it does.
I remember
Wait, is that the one where Gollum's a frog?
Yeah, he looks
Yeah.
more like a frog, which, to be fair, that is how he's described. He is he is described as having webbed feet in the book, in both Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit.
Yeah.
Okay,
But,
so
yeah.
guess
And
that's-
lamp-like eyes, big lamp-like eyes. Yeah.
okay, I guess that's why it looks a little bit different for that
Yeah.
trailer for that Gollum video game.
Right.
Yeah, Gollum's getting his own video game.
Right. That when that came on TV in the 70s, that was huge, man.
Oh yeah, I remember when I was a kid. It was on video.
Yeah.
You could order it. Like I would be watching Nickelodeon. There was a commercial for you to order The Hobbit on video.
And they made the Return of the King, Rankin and Bass, right?
Yeah,
It's
and-
almost a direct sequel to the Ralph Bakshi Lord of the Rings too.
right, which I also bought actually.
Yeah. Which is good.
Yeah.
It's rough, but it's also unfinished.
Yeah.
It was famously unfinished. They cut his budget to nothing, mid production or 3/4 of the way through.
It's a wonderful movie. It's a really great movie.
They're all good,
The scenes with Bilbo and Gollum
Yeah.
are great. I
Great,
like the guy who played Gollum. Like I thought he was Andy Serkis, because I like Andy Serkis' version of Gollum. I thought he was great, but this guy is like insane. Like it asks us a riddle, my precious. Like oh my god, this guy's crazy. Yeah. And then his meeting with Smaug, of course.
Right. Yeah, that was really good. And that was John Huston, I think.
That's
I
me.
believe
The
so,
Elder
yeah.
Houston, the Elder
Yeah.
Houston.
Yeah. And then of course Bard the Bowman looked like
Right.
he looked like Burt Reynolds.
He did, yeah. My recommendation is a game. It's like the most bizarre concept. It's called Snow Runner. Snow Runner? Now I'm forgetting the name. You basically...
I don't play enough video games to know. So.
Yeah, it's like... it's basically like a four-wheeling game, but it's not like sport and recreation. You actually... Like, it starts off, and it's like, your town has just endured like several days of rain and a terrible flood. You've got to help the community. Basically, you have to repair a bridge, and you pull trucks out of being stuck in the mud, and it's awesome. It's not for everybody. It's very strange.
What are you in this game? Are you a car?
Yeah, well, yeah, you're in the truck, but you don't actually get out and do anything. You're just in the truck.
So you're in the truck,
and you can connect winches. Yeah.
And
you see
you run around
like
you
a
run
lumberjack.
around,
Yeah,
you run around in the truck,
around, yeah,
doing stuff
it's
for
so much
the
fun.
community.
It's amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, no, I bet it is. It's just one of those things
bizarre.
where when you explain it to someone who hasn't played it out loud, it's like, okay.
Yeah, no, I get
goats, like someone was trying to explain Goat Simulator to me, and I'm like, that sounds weird and
awesome.
dumb.
That sounds
I don't
awesome.
Know. I don't know.
All right. Yeah.
I don't
anyway,
play
that's
enough video games enough, so I'm sorry.
All right, that's it for me. That's it for the show. Like, share, subscribe. Don't like, thumbs us down. That's fine too.
Yeah, help us with the algorithm.
Right. Coming up in a few weeks is we're gonna stream. We're gonna do the fresh spring stream, and I'm gonna stream a video game, and make sure you check that out. And we got more stuff coming. We're still working on some other stuff. And
what are we streaming?
I haven't decided on the game yet because there is a game I want to play.
E.T.
Among Us. But the first game, no, it's going to be
E.T. by Atari.
It's more of a relaxing. That's why
I actually have
E.T. by Atari.
I have it signed by James Rolfe.
Wow. Is that not?
I don't have an Atari though.
Is that not
is that not what we're playing? Is that not a relaxing game?
I wouldn't say that's relaxing. Yeah.
I don't have an Atari, but I have the cartridge.
All right. Oh, nice.
Signed by James Rolfe.
Nice.
Oh, cool. Angry video game nerd.
That's pretty
California.
Cool. Nice. All right, guys.
All right. See you guys later.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.